The New Orleans Saints have found a creative way to address Ryan Ramczyk's contract and his complex situation, and I believe that what they chose to do was best case scenario. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we're going to take a look at what moves still remain that the New Orleans Saints could make to get further under the salary cap and open up even more spending money if they choose to. We'll take a look at how Hunter Renfrow could be in the cards for the New Orleans Saints as he's expected to become a free agent as the new league year tips over this afternoon. And to kick us all off, we're going to take a look at a reworked deal, not restructured, but reworked deal for Ryan Ramczyk that I think was best case scenario for all parties involved. We'll take a look at what it means for the Saints, what it means for Ryan Ramczyk, and how far under the salary cap they are now and how much they have to spend. We got all that for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much being an everydayer and making us your first listen of the day here on the Locked On Saints podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On for $20 off of your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed over at Game Time. So the New Orleans Saints, I think, found the best case scenario in terms of how to work through Ryan Ramczyk's contract and complex situation. And I think that the way that they did it was much better than the typical restructure situation. So here's why I believe that. Let's start there. So Ryan Ramczyk is dealing with the degenerative knee issue that we all know about. That isn't a thing that's going to ever go away as long as he's playing football. So it's something that has to be managed. He's been on sort of that Wednesday rest schedule for a while. And at the end of the season, when he wasn't able to finish the season on the field for New Orleans, there was this whole conversation around how, he might have major surgery to his knee. It might be the end of his playing career, all of those things. We got much better news when we spoke with Dennis Allen at the Combine when he shared with us that he had minor knee surgery, Ryan Ramczyk, not major knee surgery, and is expected to be ready for training camp. So it seems that everything's kind of full steam ahead for Ryan Ramczyk, probably a better outlook after the season than what they were anticipating during the season. That's good news, but still the threat or the concern is there when it comes to a long-lasting knee concern. So restructuring his contract, which would have meant taking his $17 million base salary and roster bonus and reducing that all the way down to $1.2 million. That's an over $15 million restructure that they would have had to kick the can down the road for. They instead went a different route. They didn't go to him with a restructure. They just simply reworked his deal. And we've seen this now 3 times for the New Orleans Saints this season. They've done it with Tyrann Mathieu. They did it with Demario Davis. And now they're doing it with Ryan Ramczyk. And there's also shades of the Michael Thomas contract from last year involved in this as well. So here's what the Saints did. Instead of restructuring all of that money from his base salary and kicking the can down the road, if you will, they instead simply reduced his salary. They agreed upon a reduced salary from $17 million to a guaranteed $6.5 million. Why would Ryan Ramczyk accept that? Because it's guaranteed. How much money did Ryan Ramczyk have guaranteed in 2024 on the initial contract? Goose egg, $0. So like Tyrann Mathieu, who accepted less money in 2024 to earn a greater amount of total money over the course of the contract and adding a new year. Same thing with Demario Davis, accept less money in 2024 in order to then get a new year in 2025, more total money. You're seeing for Ryan Ramczyk, he's accepting less overall money, but more guaranteed money in that his original guaranteed money situation was $0. So what the Saints do here is that instead of restructuring $15 million of his $17 million base salary and some change, they end up restructuring just $5 million of that $6.5 million that's guaranteed. So they give him the veteran minimum deal, and then just over $5 million gets restructured over the course of 5 years. They'd need to add a void year in 2029 in order for that to happen, which drops his cap hit from $27 million to around $12 million to $13 million. So you're looking at the Saints saving around $15 million, $14 to $15 million by making this move without kicking anything but a restructured $5 million bill down the road. And that is a fantastic move. And again, it works for all parties because Ryan Ramczyk is not capped at that $6.5 million guaranteed. They put escalators in his contract that are likely tied to playing time, potentially team success, i.e., play 80% of snaps and the team makes the playoffs, play 80% of snaps and the team makes the divisional round, things like that. And of course, Pro Bowl and All-Pro recognition in terms of personal accolades could also be included in that or those escalators as well. We don't have that full detail just yet. So you get guaranteed money to Ryan Ramczyk. You, as the organization, save money, and Ryan Ramczyk still has the ability to earn the upside of his original deal through those escalators by simply playing well, or the team playing well. We'll see exactly what those escalators end up being and turning into, but it's a fantastic move for New Orleans on all of those different sort of, bits. Works out for them, works out for Ryan to get extra guaranteed money that he didn't have before, and works out that he can still earn top dollar. So now where does that put the New Orleans Saints in terms of their salary cap position? This puts them under the salary cap. Going into this morning, according to our friends over at Over the Cap, the Saints were $932,000 under the salary cap, in the black. So they were able to spend. They were compliant with the salary cap, all of those other things. Now, this move opens up potentially $15 or so million that should put them, or let's call it $14 or so million. It's going to be like $14.7 million is around where this would open, unless there's some extra money somewhere that we don't know about yet. So that puts the Saints about $15.6, $15.5 million under the salary cap. Then you add in the Willie Gay contract, which is up to $5 million. It might just be vet minimum in terms of what the base salary is. We'll see what ends up being the full contract breakdown for that. What are the incentives? What are the escalators? Things like that could be in place. But the Saints could be sitting around $13 to $14 million available after the Willie Gay contract. It's a good spot to be, and they still have some other mechanisms available to them to make more money, which we'll cover later on in today's show. They're hosting Chase Young. They would easily have the money to give him a backloaded contract that has a low first-year salary and a signing bonus, all that. They'd be able to fit that under that very easily, and could even go on to maybe add another nicely sized contract, should they really desire, in addition to being able to add all of the smaller contracts that they'll continue to add as well. Remember, only the top 51 players in terms of salary end up counting, in terms of cap hit, end up counting against the salary right now. So once you get to the point where you're signing people to those veteran minimum deals, a lot of them who get vet minimum benefits end up coming in under that top 51 cutoff. So the Saints are going to be able to fill out their roster, the 90-man roster. That's going to be fine. But how do they want to spend top-end money? They're actually in some good position to do so without doing anything else. And again, they still have ample options available. One of those potential moves that could be on the way is adding to the wide receiver room with a former teammate of Derek Carr's, Hunter Renfrow, a guy that the Saints should have been interested in last year, might have been interested in last year. They should 100% be interested in now. We're going to get to that next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp Therapy Online has been awesome for me. I think it'd be awesome for you as well. What's the first thing that you do if you had an extra hour in your day? A lot of us spend our lives wishing that we had more time, but if you actually had that time, what would that time be for? How would you use it? The best way to squeeze into that sort of special thing into your schedule and everything is to figure out what's most important to you and make it a priority. And therapy can help you find what matters to you and allows you to then be able to do more of it. I love BetterHelp. It's super simple. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. If you've been thinking about therapy, BetterHelp is the way to go. Learn to make time for what it is that makes you happy with BetterHelp today. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, family, we could be seeing another Raider reunion. Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow could soon be paired up here in New Orleans. We appreciate you very much for making us your first listen of the day every day. Hey, don't forget about our fantastic MLB season preview on the way. It's going to be on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream, which is the first of its kind, national sports 24/7 stream on YouTube, the first ever. And on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, you're going to be able to get the best MLB season preview out there, thanks to all of our MLB local experts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So once again, you can find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Looking at where the New Orleans Saints sit here after making that move with Ryan Ramczyk, around $15 million or so under the salary cap. And one thing that I will say too about the Ryan Ramczyk deal, one of the things that gives people the most pause when it comes to the Saints' practice of restructuring contracts is what do you do with players that have an injury history, and what do you do with players that are near the end of their career, right? That are sort of in the twilight of their career. Ryan Ramczyk, I don't believe, is in the twilight of his career, but he has been dealing with these injuries. Reworking this contract and exchanging things like a lower salary, but for more guaranteed money and all these other things, that's a really creative way to go about it that doesn't include kicking the can down the road, at least not nearly as much, right? It's the usual signing bonus type. I love that move for New Orleans, and it kind of mitigates the greatest concern around the restructuring process and opening up salary cap spending and all that other stuff. So what that allows you to do is be able to add talent to your team. We've already seen that with Willie Gay, who is an absolute steal of a contract. If you want more on that, that was in last night's episode. I guess we're back to two-a-days here during free agency. We're rocking and rolling here on Locked On Saints. But the next name that I think could make a lot of sense for the New Orleans Saints, or not the next, right? We'll see what order this all happens in. But another name that seems to make a lot of sense for the New Orleans Saints is Hunter Renfrow. And the Raiders were trying to trade Hunter Renfrow at the trade deadline last year. My understanding is that the Saints were actually interested in that move, but the Raiders didn't want to completely commit to it. Maybe it was compensation related and things like that. But it seems there is desire for the New Orleans Saints when it comes to Hunter Renfrow. Then you get into this offseason and the Raiders do the thing that NFL franchises should never do, which is, somebody somewhere leaks something that says, hey, yeah, we're looking to trade him. But if not, we'll just release him. Which is always so counterintuitive. It's like, well, don't tell me that. Like, don't tell me that, like, all right, yeah, you'll give me that coffee for $6.50, but if I sit here and wait for a little while, you give it to me for $1. I'm gonna sit here and wait. Easy. And if it means that I have to wait twice as long to get it for free, if I got the time in my day, I will wait twice as long to get it for free. And that's exactly what the New Orleans Saints have the ability to do here with a guy like Hunter Renfrow. Now, will it be for free? No. I mean, they're still gonna have to give him a new contract, but at least they'll have full control over what that contract is. They won't have to undo the mess that the Las Vegas Raiders created for themselves in the Hunter Renfrow contract. So the expectation, according to reports as of this morning, is that Hunter Renfrow will become a free agent at the new league year, which is at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Central here in New Orleans today. So I would not be surprised to hear that the New Orleans Saints will be agreeing to terms or signing Hunter Renfrow. I think it's a good fit. I think he fits a mold that the New Orleans Saints need. Do I think that he's going to have 100 catches for 1,000 yards? No. Do I think that you need 100 catches for 1,000 yards from him? Also, no. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the New Orleans Saints be able to pull this off and get Hunter Renfrow here. How does he fit? He's a slot receiver for you. He's a guy that comes in and is somebody that is a slot specialist, something that the New Orleans Saints have not had here as of late. They've been moving guys around, and sure, look, I get it. There's some value to that, but you can still move guys around while having a specialist that works in the slot. Doesn't mean that you can't use him that way. That's a good situation there. He's also a guy that's going to be able to pick up some tough yards for you, kind of play the Jarvis Landry role, but hopefully stay healthy to be able to play the Jarvis Landry role. And that's what I think you're going to get from him. The Saints need a possession receiver. That doesn't mean that you have to go and get a 6'5" possession guy. You could get a guy that can go out there in the slot and help you move the ball 4 or 5 yards at a time. Like if you move the ball 4 yards every single play over the course of a drive, you're scoring a touchdown. It's that simple. So if you give yourself the ability to be able to, get yourself those yards, and remember, we've talked about this before, Andrew Janocko, the new quarterbacks coach, he is a master when it comes to the short pass game, the 3-step drop. dishing the ball out, getting the ball in the hands of your playmakers 3, 4, 5 yards, 6 yards away from the line of scrimmage, and then let them do the rest. Hunter Renfrow fits that mold. Is he a game breaker for you that's going to turn a 6-yard, slant into a 60-yard touchdown? Probably not, but doesn't matter. If you can turn 6 yards into 11 yards, take that too. If you can turn 6 yards into 8 yards, take that too. If you can turn 6 yards into 6 yards, take that too if it's on first or second down. And then you take it on third down if you need 6 or less to get a first down, but you get what I'm saying here. So I do think that there's a fit there. I do think that it's not a conversation of, too many mouths to feed or anything like that. I think that it'd be a good fit for the New Orleans Saints to have a guy like Hunter Renfrow there. And of course, look, you would have him, you would have Foster Moreau, and you'd have Derek Carr. So you'd have a lot of that sort of communication and things like that. Like, I get the idea when people say the New Orleans Saints, they shouldn't be trying to replicate the Raiders. And I think that there's a big difference between adding the good, talented players from an organization to subscribing to all of the bad things that organization does. And now you can argue that maybe the players aren't as talented or whatever. I disagree. That's okay, though. But I think that there's a big difference between those two things. Just because you're adding talent from a team doesn't mean that you are completely accepting their way of operating. And it's very clear that the New Orleans Saints are still operating like the New Orleans Saints. We're seeing that play out right now. They didn't get super involved in the opening portion of free agency, which they never do. They've been focused more on retaining players and adding new talent, which they've always done. They finally got involved and they come in with some sneaky contract that nobody really was talking about beforehand, something that they've always done. And then they end up in a situation here to where they continue to restructure their contracts, rework their deals, make more money, all those other things. They're still operating like the New Orleans Saints. They're not all of a sudden operating like the Las Vegas Raiders because their quarterback is formerly a Las Vegas Raider. So I don't think that adding talent that he's familiar with, I don't think that adding good talent from that team is a bad thing. Heck, I would have taken Darren Waller on this team last year, right? Like, there's a lot of that makes a healthy Darren Waller on this team last year. So I do think that the Saints could get that done. I do think that there will be interest. We'll see if there is greater interest from another team. We'll see if Hunter Renfrow values, potential, money, right? Potential dollar amounts more than the potential connections that he already has here in New Orleans, things like that. We'll see what ends up being more important. We can't project that, right? But do I think that there will be interest? Do I think that there's a chance? Do I think that there is a likelihood that the Saints pursue Hunter Renfrow? Yes. Do I think that there is a chance that Hunter Renfrow is a New Orleans Saint in 2024, Yes, that would make a ton of sense. And in fact, I think it would be a good move for New Orleans, who has 3 wide receivers on their roster right now. And so you need to build the position group out anyway. So you might as well build them out at least with one guy that your quarterback's already familiar with. Coming up next, what moves do the New Orleans Saints have left? And how much more money could they open up? The answer is a lot to both. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends at Game Time, the absolute best place to go to get your tickets, whether you're buying a month in advance or minutes or even seconds in advance. Game Time has you covered, whether you're looking for things for your favorite sports, maybe you're looking for comedy, maybe you're looking for theater, maybe you're looking for music, whatever it is that you're looking for, you're going to be able to find it all on Game Time. They've got last minute deals. They've got all in prices. You can see the view from your seats before you even buy the ticket, and with their best price guarantee as well. Game Time simply just takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. It doesn't get any better than that. So take the guesswork out of your ticket buying process with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKED ON for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKED ON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints still have quite a few moves they can make if they decide that they want to open up more salary cap space before all is said and done over the course of this offseason and free agency period. We appreciate you very much for being here. Don't forget, we are your team every day. We might have a second episode again later on today if the Saints make another big move. I don't know, a Hunter Renfrow or something like that. We'll definitely cover it all. And of course, we're breaking everything down for you here every single Monday through Friday around the New Orleans Saints one way or another. So if there's a big signing today, we'll have another episode tonight. But no matter what, I'll be right back here with you tomorrow morning/afternoon with a fresh episode looking ahead to what's going on. And that's what we're going to focus on here, is looking ahead to what's going on The Saints right now, somewhere around $15 million under the salary cap available. So they're already in a good place to be able to start spending some money, be able to bring in more players, all those other things. But they still have some ways to make additional money as well. Let's go over some of the moves that they could make, how much their cap hits are, what the best way to go about those moves might be, and how much money they could potentially open up. So I want to start with Alvin Kamara here. Alvin Kamara, the New Orleans Saints running back, $18.759 million. So let's just call it $18.7 million. That is his current cap hit. Now, a large portion of that is indeed his base salary, meaning that restructuring him is possible, would free up somewhere between $8 to $9 million. It's like 8.8, 8.7, something like that. And that would just be a typical and simple restructure. I think that could be worth the New Orleans Saints' time. However, I do understand the hesitation there, right? Like, aging for running backs is different than aging for other positions. And so I could see the Saints being maybe based on what they did with Ryan Ramczyk there, based on what they've done with, kind of like older veteran players like Tyrann Mathieu and Demario Davis, it makes sense to maybe be a little bit cautious about this particular position. So if you can just play Alvin Kamara on his salary as it is without kicking that can down the road, there actually could be some major benefit to that, but it would mean that you might have to make moves elsewhere. So let's just entertain the idea of Alvin Kamara and his contract not being touched at all. That could be very interesting. But if you wanted to save a bit of money right now, a typical restructure would get it done. I don't think you go to Alvin Kamara and ask him to take a reworked deal. The terms of his contract, just looking at his years ahead and things like that, he's got guaranteed money. He's got money left on the deal, all this other stuff. There's just nothing really to say, okay, you do this, we'll do this kind of in exchange. So unless they creatively find that thing, it wouldn't be super surprising to me at all to see Alvin Kamara's contract either just given a typical restructure or just simply not being touched at all. Both of which could absolutely be the way to go. If they were to restructure him, I'm just grabbing the final number here. It's going to free up about $8 million. Yeah, so that's exactly what we expected it would be. Frees up about $8 million. That's totally fine. So that would end up opening you up to what? Quick math, $23 million of available salary cap. That's not a bad place to be at all. All right, let's take a look at the next one here. Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is a really interesting one. $15.7 million cap hit here for him. With that one could be really interesting. That's one where you could go and ask to rework the deal. And again, you're doing it not based on any leverage over the player or anything like that. You're doing that because, hey, here's an opportunity for you to help the team out and make the last couple of years of your deal the best possible and see if we can get you to a Super Bowl and all these other things. Like it's about like, are you willing to take the pay cut to help the team? That's basically the way that you're approaching that. If you do that, then the number can vary. Then you can accept the pay cut from his $10 million base salary of $1 million, or you could reduce all the way down to $1 million, $1.21 million to get to the veteran minimum, and then give him, kind of like you did with Ryan Ramczyk, a signing bonus that's on top of that. That's not the full 8-point-something million that you would otherwise have to restructure. You just give him a new signing bonus that maybe gets him to $7 million as opposed to $10 million of his base salary, and then you save around $3 million. Like, there's a lot of different things that you can do with that and a lot of different ways that you can go about it. But I think, honestly, Taysom's contract might be one that goes untouched. It's just not entirely necessary. It's a nice safety valve to have that you can maybe pull at a later time. But that might be one that goes completely untouched at all. And that's not super surprising. But we'll see exactly how it goes. I think that the Saints got a lot of benefit from the fact that the salary cap ended up being $13 million higher than our initial projections that it was going to be. And I think that ends up helping them maybe be able to say like, hey, we're in a situation here to where we're pretty good. Opened up some money, got some contracts that can carry, things like that. Mickey Loomis said in his, I believe it was his before the season press conference last year. It was either his before the season press conference last year or his end of year press conference the year before that, when he talked about trying to make up some of the gap on the salary cap overages that really got kicked into gear with the COVID year and all that. And these might be ways for them to do that, to where they can walk into next year's situation at $60 to $70 million over the salary cap, as opposed to $80 to $100 million over the salary cap. That ends up being a big deal for them. And that's assuming, of course, that we actually know what the projections for next year's salary cap is going to be, because in fact, we don't. And it could be another $13 million higher than we thought, in which case the Saints are walking in $40 to $50 million over the salary cap instead, which is a lot more of a comfortable zone to operate in. Saints could look to restructure James Hurst, $6.51 million base salary. I think that's a simple restructure there. It's not going to save you a ton of money, but it's definitely a way that you can go. And the Saints could also go to Juwan Johnson and potentially do a typical restructure with him as well. $7 million salary cap hit, and his base salary is $5.5 million. So if you were to reduce that all the way to vet minimum and then, give him a signing bonus and convert the rest into a signing bonus, you're probably saving around $3 to $4 million, which can help. I mean, $3 to $4 million being saved in 2024 probably helps you get a new contract and a new player in right off the bat on a veteran minimum deal with a signing bonus. Or it allows you to bring in 2 or 3 vet minimum deals on a 1-year deal with no signing bonus, right? So that little bit of an amount of money that gets made matters, right? Every penny will matter in these types of situations. So between Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, James Hurst, and Juwan Johnson, the Saints could easily get north of $30 million under the salary cap if they wanted to, or let's say south of $30 million under the salary cap, since we're talking about under. But they don't have to necessarily do that. And if I'm the New Orleans Saints, the way that I'm going about this is that I'm not worried about opening up the maximum amount of money possible right now. I just got comfortably under the salary cap at $15 to $16 million or $14 to $16 million, thanks to my Ryan Ramczyk move. And now I can add players. And then if I feel like I need to make more money, then I can go and make more money at that point. But for right now, I'm perfectly comfortable operating $15 million under the salary cap with 22 starters already on my roster or so, and feeling pretty good moving in and adding where I need to add. I'm not mad at that approach at all. And then remember, if the Saints roll into the beginning of the season with money left over that they don't spend throughout the year, it does 2 things. It allows you to be able to be active at the trade deadline, 1. 2, it allows you to roll money into 2025 to even further cut into the deficit in 2025. So I like the measured approach that the New Orleans Saints are taking. We'll see if they stick with it and if they stay that way. All right. I appreciate you. Oh, actually, sorry. There's one other one. Andrus Peat. I have no idea what's going to happen with Andrus Peat, if I'm just being honest. If they extend him, they could save around $3 to $4 million by doing so and things like that. But do you extend him and give him left tackle money? Do you extend him and give him left guard money with the interior offensive line market having just blown up and increased like $6 million in terms of average annual value? I have no beat on what's going to happen with Andrus Peat. That's going to be a very, very interesting one to watch throughout the day. Today might be a big topic in a second show if we get to one later on today, but certainly will be a big topic tomorrow. All right. Appreciate you very much for making us your first listen of the day every day for your second listen. Make sure you go and check out Locked on LSU with Caroline Fenton and Locked on Pelicans with our good friend Jake Madison. We appreciate you very much, as always, making Locked on Saints a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And a big shout out to my homie, Randy. Thank you so much for all of your support and for hitting me up. Appreciate you. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.